So this is a guy named Shane Vaughn. I've talked about him a few times before. If you're unfamiliar, this is the first time you're hearing of him. He is what I like to call a Trump pastor. He built his congregation off of Donald Trump. They are a Trump church for all intents and purposes. Now, that's not all Shane Vaughn is. He's also a convicted felon. He went to jail. I think I have 3 mugshots of the guy. At least 3 mugshots. See if I can find him real quick. Throw him up on screen. Yeah, okay, so here's one mugshot. Here's a second mugshot. And here's a third mugshot. Bottom line with why he was charged with a crime in the first place, I just give you the 10-second version. He was running an insurance scam, a life insurance scam. He was taking out life insurance policies on people who entrusted him as part of his job with their social security numbers. He'd take out life insurance policy on older people, and he lists himself as a beneficiary, receives hundreds of thousands of dollars, boom, lands himself in jail. So, and that didn't, obviously, life insurance sales didn't work out for him as a profession, so he decided to go with Donald Trump pastor, of course. So, anyway, he had some things to say about Donald Trump's indictment. I don't know how many we're at right now. Are we at number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5? I have no idea how many in we are at this point, but this is a reasonably new video, so this might tip you off to how far in we are. Give this a listen. This is from August 2023, I believe. Check this out.
So by the time these appeals are filed, Donald Trump will be reelected president. Now, you already know that the Department of Justice has a long-standing policy. What is that policy? You do not prosecute a sitting president.
No, that's not the policy. First of all, okay, so he's trying to come up with this creative way of getting Donald Trump out of the situation that he's in right now. Shane Vaughn is trying to come up with a rational justification for why Trump is not to blame for any of this and he shouldn't end up in jail to his congregation. Because Shane Vaughn, if you didn't know, there's a whole video on my channel about this, my main channel, Owen Morgan Telltale. Shane Vaughn's whole theology is built around Donald Trump having a second term. And the fact that he didn't receive that second term literally, okay, I shouldn't say literally, completely breaks his theology. Quick interjection. I won't take long. I just wanted to tell you guys, YouTube's algorithm operates off of a few factors. Watch time, whether or not you subscribe, and whether or not you like something. So if you really want to help my channel, I would appreciate it if you guys watch the video to the end. If you don't watch it to the end, just watch a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. I would appreciate that very much. All right, let's get back to the video. For lack of a better term, again, I go into the theology in great detail in the other video I did. It's called A New Religion Just Appeared, I think, on my Owen Morgan channel. Yeah, a new religion just appeared. Trump is officially considered a messiah. I break the entire thing down, like his whole belief system beginning to end. I'm not going to bother here. Just give you a shorter version. Jesus was expected to return, right, as the Son of Man, the Messiah foretold in the Old Testament, where he's going to take political control of Israel and spark Armageddon into being. Well, what Shane Vaughn believes and teaches his congregation is that Donald Trump is the Son of Man stepping into that role for Jesus. They thought Jesus was going to come a second time, but actually, Jesus already came. Now it's just Donald Trump's job to take political control of Israel, which, in Shane Vaughn's opinion, he did, because America is New Israel. And he needs that second term to happen so that Trump can spark Armageddon. So that's the basic theology here. So he's going to do absolutely anything, whatever it takes, to get Donald Trump out of hot water here, to give him some legal arguments he can use, and to justify the heinous that Donald Trump has done as the president of the United States and just as a human being. He's going to try to justify it to his congregation. So anyway, let's keep listening here.
Prosecute a sitting president.
I'm sorry. One more thing I wanted to mention. Just step back, listen to this.
Prosecute a sitting president.
The Department of Justice's policy is not to prosecute a sitting president. That's wrong. That's just incorrect completely. There was some memo passed around in the executive branch in the Bill Clinton years in the 90s that was an opinion that in these people's opinion, you shouldn't indict a sitting president. That's completely different from prosecuting a sitting president. If somebody enters office and they are already facing prosecution, there's no law that says anything about that. No memos, no suggestions, no nothing. You can continue on with that prosecution. The memo he's talking about, God, I wish I remembered where it came from. When this is edited, I'll say who wrote the memo right here if I can find it. Anyway, the memo he's talking about says you can't indict a sitting president, and the reason is because there is a remedy for presidents who break the law for high crimes and misdemeanors, and that is impeachment. Doesn't say anything about them not being prosecuted for that. They're perfectly free to be prosecuted for whatever afterward, for treason. You know, if I'm just tossing out an example here, if Trump turned out he was feeding literally every piece of information that we have to, God, we're not at war with any major world powers right now. If we were at war with Russia and it turned out Trump was feeding information, troop movements and locations to Vladimir Putin while we were at war with them, which we're not, but just hypothetically, that would be treason. And Donald Trump would not only be impeached for that, but he would also be hanged for treason. That's right there in the Constitution. You're hanged for treason. That's the death penalty. That's one of the punishments for treason. So anyway, if this guy has no idea what he's talking about, I just want to lay the groundwork for that right now. No clue what's happening around him. And he's going to build everything he can around the faulty premises that he believes in. Okay, so he's already incorrect in saying you can't prosecute a sitting president. Yeah, you can, actually.
Guess what Donald Trump will be at that time? A sitting president, at which time all prosecution must cease.
No, that completely false. Completely false. He's viewing it as though the president is like a king or something. Now, there's a jurisdictional difference here. New York, the state of New York, the state of Georgia, and the state of Florida, to my knowledge, are all three charging Trump with crimes. Florida may not be in the mix, I'm not sure. And the federal government is also charging Trump with crimes. Now, if Donald Trump were to take the presidency, he could not pardon himself for any of this stuff. Even Nixon knew that. Widely considered to be the most corrupt president up to this point, up until Trump. That's why he resigned and had somebody else do it, which is, Gerald Ford, I think is his name. He was the next in line. He was his vice president. He pardoned Nixon because he said we needed to move on or whatever. Anyway, even Nixon, the previously most corrupt president, knew you can't pardon yourself. But you know what? For the sake of argument, even if he did pardon himself from federal crimes, he's going to have to deal with state crimes. He has no choice. The federal government has absolutely no jurisdiction in states. Alvin Bragg and Fani Willis and all of the other prosecutors on a state level can put him in state jail, and there is nothing that can stop it. Nothing anybody can do except for the governors of those states. I mean, I'm just pointing out the cracks in the wall that this dude's trying to build for Donald Trump. Just ridiculous. If he actually took these ideas to court, he'd be laughed out of the courtroom. Please. These are simply set up for his congregation to understand how Donald Trump is going to take power and spark Armageddon into being. That's it.
Or at least be put on hold. He will serve his second term as the prophet of God said he would.
And that's all they need. He's going to spark Armageddon. That's the belief system in his little world there. All they need is for Trump to get that second term, and he will spark Armageddon and the rapture, and everybody goes to heaven. Everyone who believed in Trump goes to heaven, and everyone else goes to hell. I am not joking. You think I'm joking? Go watch that video on my channel. A new religion just appeared. Trump is officially considered a messiah. I am... Do you see me smiling? I'm dead serious right now.
And then his protege will be the next president who will completely pardon him of all charges.
His protege? I don't understand what he's talking about. Do you mean vice president? I don't understand. Like, none of this makes any sense at all.
That's how this thing ends up. Sit back and watch.
I mean, he's terribly wrong on every count. Literally, every step of the way is wrong. Everything that he just outlined for us is built on a faulty premise. But you know what? He's a Trump pastor. So what do you expect from him? He's not a nobody either, by the way. He's reasonably influential in the movement. He's got a pretty big church with a lot of donators. Well, back in, I think, June 16th, 2023, Shane Vaughn, I follow this dude's Telegram channel like a hawk. I don't know if you guys know Telegram. Yep, I have light mode. I apologize. I don't know how to change it to dark mode, or I would. Anyways, this is Telegram. If you guys have ever used it, I only follow right-wing nutcases on here. That's like the whole point of having Telegram for me. I follow this dude on Telegram like all the time. It's really just got it. Some of the stuff he says is unglued from reality. Anyway, he released this video all the way back in June 16th, 2023 as another attempt to get Trump out of trouble. Again, I'm not even sure which indictment he's dealing with here. Is this like the documents indictment? Is this number 2, number 3, number 4? I have no clue. But let's give it a listen. See what he has to say here. Here is his explanation for why Trump doesn't have anything to worry about, and he's the prophet and all that.
Is the United States president above the law?
No, nobody is above the law.
The answer may shock you.
No, it wouldn't shock me. Nobody is above the law.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
Let me explain.
Please.
The president is not a man. It's an institution.
No, the presidency is an institution. The president, with a T, is a man. It's a guy.
It's an office. It is a tangible thing.
The office of the presidency, a tangible thing. Okay, tangible means you can touch it, you can feel it. You know, it's a physical object. What are you talking about? A tangible thing? What? No, it's not. Like in any way, shape, or form. No. The president is not above the law, and the presidency is not tangible.
And that thing lives outside.
I thought he was going to say in your mom, but okay. I was close.
Of the person of a man or a woman.
No, the presidency lives outside the person of a man or a woman. The president is a person.
Men and women come in and out of that entity.
Kind of like I did your mom last night, right? Boom! Got him! I swear I lined myself up perfectly for that one. I could not have hit that one more perfectly. Sorry, guys. All right, let's listen again. He asked for it by saying something like that, right?
Women come in and out of that entity called the presidency.
Yes, presidents come in and out of the presidency, the office of the presidency, the leader of the executive branch. It doesn't have anything to do with, president is not an institution. It's a person. Presidency is the institution. What is wrong with you?
Contained within the presidency is the same power that is contained within the headship of the late Queen Elizabeth, the current King Charles. There is a reason that Her Majesty does not have to have a driver's license or a tag on her vehicle.
Okay, I don't know if that's even true. Maybe it is. But guess what? Britain is a completely different system than America. Is this the first time you're hearing this? Where did you go to school, Shane? Are you kidding me? We left Great Britain, or we left England because we didn't like the way that the government operated there. We didn't like the fact that there was a guy at the very top that made, all the decisions, called all the shots. He could say or do whatever the hell he wanted, and there were no repercussions, no accountability, and there was no way to appeal. We didn't like that. So we fought a war, the Revolutionary War, for the right to create a government for the people and by the people, in which nobody is above the law. Nobody. Not even the guy that leads the thing. That's the reason we have the system that we have in the first place. That's the founding principle upon which the United States was built. We don't want a king or a queen. Never did. That's why we're here. You poor fool. Like, how is he? You know what? I'm not going to be that guy. Not going to be the guy that's always bagging on people. I don't insult. I don't insult. Let's just continue. I think Shane Vaughn is a perfectly nice person. In all seriousness, I think that the arguments that Shane comes up with are extremely intelligent and well thought out, and he kind of missed his calling as a lawyer, in my opinion. Seriously. He could be a really good lawyer. It's like he's missing pieces of information, but if he had those pieces, he could come up with some wicked arguments. So yeah, I guess he didn't go for lawyer. I suppose he went for, felon, stealing people's social security numbers and stuff, but okay.
Have to have a driver's license or a tag on her vehicle, because it is from her person.
We're talking about the Queen of England, right? Of course, Queen of England died. She was already dead when he made this. I don't know why he's talking about her. King Charles. We're talking about the king right now, okay?
That the authority to grant such things comes from.
So he's saying the authority to grant a driver's license comes from the King of England. So because he has the right to grant that to people, he has no need for it himself. That's absurd. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. If that's how England does it, it's ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm going to call it out. That's stupid. You should still, I don't care if you have the right to grant a driver's license or tags or not. You should still have a driver's license. You should still be qualified to do the things that you do. You should be able to prove that you're qualified to do that by taking the driver's license test, just like everybody else. We didn't want a system in the U.S. based upon a king or a queen. We didn't want a system where no one was above the law. That was the point. How did he miss this? Did he even go to grade school? I think I learned this in 3rd grade.
Comes from. Therefore, if she is the grantor of a driver's license, giving you permission to drive on her roads.
Okay, let's just assume they are her roads. She should still have to prove that she's qualified to drive on those roads also. King Charles should also have to prove that he is capable of driving on those roads. I don't care. Now, I don't know if that's the case or not. I have no clue. I know nothing about the UK system, or very little. A little bit. Not enough to know if Shane is completely full of it here. Somebody can fill me in later. But either way, I don't care. I don't care. We don't live in a system where a monarch controls everything. You know what system we live in? We live in a system where no one is above the law.
That same permission.
He's saying she doesn't need that same permission, okay?
But we're not Great Britain. That doesn't compare.
Right. We're not Great Britain. That doesn't compare. Correct.
Absolutely, it does.
No.
Because the Queen, now that they're a constitutional monarchy, is no longer vested in herself, but rather in the office of the monarchy.
What the hell does he mean by that? I don't even understand what he's talking about right now. The Queen, now that they are a constitutional monarchy, which is fairly recent, is no longer vested in, what was that?
Is no longer vested in herself, but rather in the office of the monarchy.
What the hell is he talking about? I don't understand. This makes no sense at all. Am I missing something?
The presidency and the monarchy, in many ways, are just alike.
No, No, they are not. And if you think they are, which you obviously do, you skipped a class in 3rd grade, okay? And you've completely missed the point. It's just gone right over your head. The point of building the system that we have. Holy dude, really? This guy has absolutely no clue what is going on. None. Like I said, I'm not the kind to insult. This is an honest analysis. I don't like insulting people. So, you know what? Let me put it to you this way. Shane is just a little bit undereducated on this subject, and if he had more education on it, it would be a lot scarier. Because the dude, of course, building off of faulty premises, builds some wicked, fascinating arguments.
Contained within it, the monarchy, the presidency, lies the total power to execute laws.
I guess, well, okay, I suppose in the strictest sense that's true, because the executive branch has the military. And I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but back in, when was it? The 1850s, I think? Hang on, let me find out. I'm embarrassed I don't know this. Okay, 1831. I was close. Back in 1831, the U.S. government forcibly removed Native Americans from their homelands and relocated them. Relocated, quote unquote. It's called the Trail of Tears. A lot of people died. It was a full-blown genocide. It's heavily downplayed in our history books, but it was a full-blown genocide that took place. Now, the Supreme Court at the time said it's unconstitutional for you to do this. It's wrong. You can't force people off their land like that. And the president at the time, Andrew Jackson, I believe, who was the president in 1831? Andrew Jackson, yep, I was correct. The president, Andrew Jackson, being the leader of the executive branch and having complete control of the military, being the commander-in-chief, said, okay, if that's the decision you made as the Supreme Court, enforce it then. We live in a system that is built upon customs and traditions and norms. The Supreme Court is only followed, or the rules that they come to, is only followed by the executive branch through tradition and to maintain the system that we have, and no other reason. So I guess in the strictest sense, Shane Vaughn is kind of right here.
To execute laws. Now, a monarchy has much greater power to execute many other things, but in the United States, the execution of all law, not the creation of law, but the execution thereof, lies completely and firmly within the office of the presidency.
No, that's completely incorrect. That's wrong. There's a jurisdictional problem that Shane is completely ignoring. Different jurisdictions, different states, different cities, different municipalities, counties, whatever else, they have their own jurisdictions, and they can create and enforce their own laws. And the president, the executive branch of the federal government, has no place to come in and make any changes to that stuff. That's actually how it works. Like I said before, Donald Trump is going to have to face down those charges from Georgia and New York and wherever else he's going to be charged. Whether he's pardoned by anybody or not is irrelevant on a federal level. He's going to have to face down the charges on a state level because they have their own jurisdictions, period.
And in the man or the woman that fills that office, while they fill it, they are above the law.
No, they are not. They are simply a part of the system. The presidency, in the strictest sense, enforces laws because they have the military. That's it. The president is still bound to those laws.
Because anything else would be insanity.
Well, anything else would be a constitutional crisis. That's the word he's looking for. He doesn't understand the words that he's using or the terms, or he doesn't understand like the concepts that he's describing here, and he thinks they're novel to him. Like I said, this dude would be a scary good lawyer, in my opinion, because he comes up with some really fascinating arguments and ideas. If only they weren't built on faulty premises from the very start.
You cannot put a man in a prison that he holds the key to.
Well, see, that's the thing. Donald Trump doesn't hold the key to the prisons in the United States. The governors technically holds the keys to every prison within their jurisdiction, and in the federal government, that doesn't include them. The governors don't hold the keys to get themselves out of jail. And federally, the president holds the key to let anybody out of prison on a federal level, except for themselves. That was not outlined in the Constitution. That is not something that a president is allowed to do. According to the Constitution, they cannot pardon themselves. You know Trump's going to try it, though.
Every prison in this nation is under the purview and the direct authority
of their governors.
The President of the United States of America.
No, that's only federal. Completely ignoring the fact that suddenly this guy's a federalist. Suddenly he wants a strong national government. Suddenly he wants a strong federal government. You know why? Okay, this guy's a Republican, right? A Republican, deep red Republican Trump supporter, who believes that Donald Trump is the Messiah. And suddenly he wants a strong federal government and weak state governments, even though his entire life has been spent arguing for states' rights and against federal government. He suddenly wants a federal government that's massive because he thinks Donald Trump is going to be in that office next, and he wants Trump to act as a dictator. He is hoping that Trump will act as a dictator, and he sees it in the stars. He thinks that's what's going to happen.
Every law enforcement agency in this nation is beholden to the President of the United States of America.
That's simply not how our system works. Again, he'd be a great lawyer. I am so glad that he is so misinformed, that he is relegated to a little corner of maybe not quite mega church, but Trump pastor anyways, instead of actually being involved in the system as a lawyer and actually causing real world damage. He's already doing damage in his own right, but yeah.
And serve at his pleasure. That's why the power to classify and declassify documents lies solely within the presidency.
Sure. I mean, I guess.
I'm going to prove it to you even further.
Please.
A man that commits a crime, a high crime.
A high crime and misdemeanor specifically outlined in the Constitution as a justification for removing the president from office.
Which means a big crime or a misdemeanor.
I take it to mean a felony misdemeanor. Basically, it was outlining any crime at all. That's how I read it. Legal scholars may have a different take on it. I don't know.
What happens to that person, you or me?
We are charged with that crime.
If we commit a high crime and a misdemeanor, where do we go?
We get indicted, and then we get prosecuted, and then we go to jail if it's determined beyond a reasonable doubt that we did commit that crime.
You guessed it. We go directly to jail. We don't pass go. We don't collect $200. We go to jail.
Okay.
What happens if a president commits a high crime or a misdemeanor?
He's removed from office through the impeachment process, and then he's indicted for that crime if it's bad enough, or he can be indicted for that crime if it's bad enough once he's removed from office. And, I mean, there's this tradition in U.S. history where we don't indict sitting presidents or we don't indict ex-presidents at all. And it's a good tradition. I kind of agree with it to some degree. I mean, it's something you could debate about. Something that you see in countries that are less developed or underdeveloped or just complete train wrecks. By and large, something you see is when a president gets into office from the opposing party, he'll prosecute the previous president for something, and it's the start of a mess, basically. So I actually agree that it's a bad thing to prosecute former presidents, but Trump very clearly did some very, very wrong things here, right? And it's 100% justified in this case. But now the fear is, if Trump gets back into office, which I think is unlikely, but if he did, or hell, if any Republican gets back into office, which will inevitably happen, there's a real distinct possibility that they are going to start prosecuting ex-presidents that they don't like. They're going to prosecute Obama or Biden or, hell, Jimmy Carter, anybody, whoever, because they don't like the fact that Trump was prosecuted for something that he did. Or Trump doesn't like the fact that he was, so he's going to make a point of making sure that other people are prosecuted or impeached or whatever other thing. It's the start of an escalation that rolls downhill really, really, really quickly. But like I said, nobody should be above the law. Nobody, period.
Does that same law apply to him?
It should.
Constitution says no.
The Constitution does not say the president is above the law. I don't know what he's talking about.
What happens to him? We remove him from that power.
And then we can optionally prosecute from a federal level. It's just like never happened. We've never gone through this process.
We remove him from that office through a process called impeachment, which is basically an indictment, which means nothing.
No, it's not basically an indictment. An impeachment means we've decided to, I guess in some form it's kind of like an indictment. It's like we've decided that there's enough evidence here to go through a trial for this president, for this guy. Yes. So I guess in that, sense, it's an indictment. But in the strictest, truest sense, it's not.
Basically an indictment, which means nothing unless it is approved by the Senate.
It means that he was impeached, but he's not removed from office unless the jurors, which are the senators, decide to remove him. The impeachment process should honestly not be the Senate. Can you get a more biased set of people than that, honestly? And to impeach somebody in the first place in the House, why the hell do we have the House do that? We shouldn't have the House doing that.
If the president is impeached, he is not sent to jail. He's sent home.
Yep, removed from office, where he can then be prosecuted further for what he did. Just assume for a second a president murders somebody, literally kills somebody, takes a knife, stabs him in the chest 32 times. For no reason. There's no self-defense explanation, no nothing. Let's just pretend for a moment. That is a high crime or a misdemeanor. That's a high crime. It's a felony. Felony murder, right? First-degree murder. Premeditated. He was sitting there lying in wait for this person to come in so that he could murder him. Just imagine with me for a second. He could be impeached by the House, and then the Senate would act as the jurors. The Supreme Court would act as the judges in the case to kind of keep order. The Senate would kick him out of office, remove him from office, and afterward, the federal government could prosecute him if they chose. They could indict and prosecute for first-degree murder. Impeachment and indictment are not mutually exclusive to my understanding. I've never heard that before in my life. Again, this guy would be a fantastic lawyer if he knew anything at all. Naricol says, shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue, you mean? Yeah, that's a better analogy. I was trying to go way over the top and kind of leave Trump behind, but you know what? Trump said it for me. I don't even need to. So it's a good point.
That means the presidency is above the law.
No, it does not. He just doesn't understand how this works at all.
Don't let people convince you otherwise. All you can do to a sitting president is to get them out of that office.
And then prosecute, yes.
Because while they're in that office, they are shielded from all the criminal consequences that you and I are not shielded from.
Well, that's just because of a memorandum that was passed around. It's not actually law. It is legal to indict a sitting president, but it would put us in a constitutional crisis and cause a huge mess. And oh my God, it would be terrible. I hope I never live to see the day that we have to indict a sitting president, because the constitutional crisis it would put us in would be disturbing on so many levels.
And rightly so. You cannot vest authority in a person and then imprison them while they hold that authority. It's insanity to even think so.
Right. Well, he's describing a constitutional crisis. Again, yes. That would be a bad thing. That's what Trump was trying to force on January 6th, a constitutional crisis. He wasn't trying to get people to send it back to the states just because he thought that he could whatever. No, he wanted to cause a constitutional crisis where he had an upper hand and people didn't know what to do because there's no explanation for what to do here. And so they just do nothing and he remains where he is. He remains president. That was kind of the idea. It leads to chaos and nonsense. It's bad. It's a bad thing. Now, the president and vice president and, every other person in government has sworn an oath to protect and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. Donald Trump was attempting to put us in a constitutional crisis where if we follow his orders, it's against the Constitution. But, we're in a situation where the Constitution doesn't make any sense and it's not specific enough here and it's just confusing. It's just a mess. That's what Trump is trying to create on January 6th.
Now that brings me down to the indictment against President Donald Trump. Everything they've indicted him for, everything.
Again, I don't know which indictment this was. It's 2, 3, 4. I think this may have been number 3. So the documents one, maybe? I think this is the documents on a federal level.
Is connected to his time in the presidency. Now, many people would say, no, he committed these crimes after he left office. No. All
right, so his argument is that Donald Trump did something while he was president, which is steal a bunch of from the National Archives and get on a plane and fly away when he was moving out of the White House because someone else is moving in. But he was technically still president when that happened, so it's justified. Whatever it is, whatever he did, he's completely immune to prosecution. Absolutely absurd. The problem is that Shane Vaughn doesn't understand the basics of the law in this case. If he understood the very basics of the law, he would understand how absolutely ridiculous it is, what he's saying. Not only that, he doesn't seem to understand, what the founders stood for in the country. He doesn't understand anything. I guess it's lucky this dude was busy facing down a bunch of felonies for stealing Social Security numbers rather than sitting in law school, because we'd be in worse shape if he were going to law school instead. Oh, I'm sorry. The acronym you were looking for was OLC, Office of Legal Counsel. Thank you so much, Luke Hunt. Yes, I could not remember for the life of me where that memorandum had come from or what it stood for or whatever. So thank you for clarifying on that one.